Welcome to O8 JAMB English tutorial. In today's lesson, we will learn how JAMB says comprehension passage, the techniques examiner use, and how you can answer comprehension questions correctly. Before we begin, let's look at what you will learn in this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand what comprehension means and why it is important in JAMB. You will also learn the different types of comprehension questions, how to use skimming and scamming techniques, and how to understand words in context. Most importantly, you'll be able to answer JAMB comprehension questions confidently and correctly. Now, let's look at the meaning of comprehension. Comprehension simply means the ability to read a passage and understand what it is really saying. It is not just about reading the words, but understanding the message behind them. When you read a passage, you should be able to identify the main idea. That is what the passage is mainly about, and also the supporting details that explain the idea. You should also understand the author's purpose, which is the reason the passage was written, and the tone, which is the author's attitude, whether serious, happy, or critical. Another important aspect is understanding vocabulary in context. This means knowing the meaning of words based on how they are used in passage, not just their dictionary meaning. You should also be able to draw reference, which means reading between the lines to understand ideas that are not directly stated. Comprehension involves summarizing, which means explaining the passage briefly in your own words. So comprehension is about reading, understanding, and interpreting a passage correctly. Now let's look at time management and reading techniques in comprehension. In JAMB, time management is very important because you are given limited time to answer all questions. If you spend too much time on one passage, you may not be able to finish the rest. That is why you must learn how to manage your time properly, to read quickly and still understand what you are reading. To help you do this, there are two main important reading techniques you need to know. These are skimming and scanning. The first one is skimming. Skimming means reading fastly to get the general idea of the passage. You are not reading every word. Instead, you focus on a particular part, like the first sentence, the last sentence, and the keywords. This helps you to understand what the passage is mainly about. For example, if the passage is talking about education, skimming will quickly help you know that the topic is education without reading everything in detail. The second technique is scanning. Scanning means looking for specific information in the passage. For example, if a question asks, who is responsible, or what is mentioned, you don't read the whole passage again. You quickly look for that particular detail. Scanning helps you to save time because you go straight to the answer instead of reading everything again. So in comprehension, you first skim to understand the main idea, and then you scan the passage to find specific answer. If you use these two techniques properly, you'll be able to answer questions faster and more accurately in your JAMB exam. Now let's look at the different types of comprehension questions you will see in JAMB. In JAMB, comprehension questions are not all the same. They test different skills, so you need to understand different types. The first type is factual questions. These are the easiest questions because answers are directly stated in the passage. You don't need to think too much, you just locate the answer. For example, if the question asks, what is the Sahara Desert known as? You can find the answer directly inside the passage. So you can simply scan for the information. The second type is inference questions. These are bits more difficult because the answers are not directly written. You have to read between the lines and think about what the writer is suggesting. For example, if the question asks, what can be inferred between the plants and animals? You have to understand the idea and draw your own conclusion from the passage. The third type is vocabulary in context. These questions ask for the meaning of a word as it is used in the passage. This is very important because the meaning of a word can change depending on how it is used. So you should not just rely on the dictionary meaning. You must look at the sentence and understand what the word means in that context. The last type is the main idea or central theme question. This type asks about the overall message of the passage. In other words, what is the passage mainly about? To answer this, you have to understand the whole passage, not just one part. Now, here is an important tip. When answering comprehension questions, you should start with factual questions because they are the easiest. Then move to vocabulary questions, followed by inference, and finally the main idea. Also, always underline and highlight the keywords in the questions and the passage. This will help you to find answers quickly and to avoid mistakes. Now let's apply what we've learned about skimming and scanning using this passage. The first thing we'll do is skimming. From the sentence, we can see the passage is talking about examination malpractice. As we move through the passage, we see words like dishonest practice, copying answers, fear of failure, and lack of preparation. So the general idea about the passage is about examination malpractice, its causes and its effects. So by skimming, we already understand what the passage is all about without reading every detail. Scanning means looking for specific information in the passage to answer the question. Let's take this question as an example. Why do students engage in malpractice? Now let's scan for the answer. We look for keywords like students, engage, or malpractice. As we scan the passage, we find the sentence, many students engage in malpractice due to fear of failure, lack of preparation, and pressure from parents or society. So the answer is fear of failure, lack of preparation, and pressure. You can see that we did not read the whole passage again. We just located the answer directly. So in comprehension, you use both skimming and scanning together. This will help you to save time and answer questions correctly in JAMB. Now let's practice using a comprehension passage. We will apply the skimming and scanning techniques to answer questions. Now let's answer some questions using this passage. Let's look at factual questions. Factual questions are usually the easiest questions. For example, the question asks what is examination malpractice. To answer this, we scan the passage for keywords. In this case, examination malpractice, when we read the sentence, it involves dishonest practice such as copying. We immediately see the answer. So the correct answer is dishonest practice during exam. You see, we don't have to guess, the passage tells us correctly. Let's look at another factual question. The question asks, what is the reason students engage in examination malpractice? Remember, factual questions have answer directly stated in the passage. So we can scan the passage for clues. Here the passage says, fear of failure, lack of preparation. From this, we can see one of the reasons is fear of failure, which is the correct answer. Notice how we didn't have to guess or read the whole passage. We just look for the word that asks the question directly. This is the key to answering factual questions quickly and accurately in JAMB. Now let's look at inference question. The question asks, examination malpractice can lead to what? Unlike factual question, inference question don't have answer directly stated. You have to read between the lines and think about what the passage is implying. In this passage, it says, produce graduates who lack knowledge. From this, we can conclude that students who cheat will become unqualified graduates. So the answer is unqualified graduates. So the correct answer is unqualified graduates. Remember, inference question tests your ability to understand the consequences or implied meaning in the passage. You are not just copying words, you are interpreting them. Now let's look at another inference question. The question asks, students who cheat are. Inference question don't give answer directly. You have to look at clue in the passage and think about what the author is implying. In this passage, we see that students cheat because of fear of failure, lack of preparation, and pressure from parents and society. From this, we can infer that these students are either unprepared or under pressure. So the correct answer is unprepared or under pressure. The tip here is to always read the clue carefully and ask yourself, what is the passage really telling me about the students? This is how you solve inference questions. Whenever you see a question about what, how, or why, or what happened as a result, think inference. Look for clues and connect them logically. Now let's look at vocabulary question. Vocabulary question asks you to find the meaning of a word based on how it is used in the passage. For example, the question asks, what does undermines mean? In the passage, the sentence is, undermine the integrity of exams. From the context, we can see that it is talking about weakening, damaging the integrity. So the correct answer is weakens. Notice that we didn't look for the dictionary meaning of the word. We looked at how it is used in the sentence to understand what it really means here. This is very important for JAMB vocabulary questions. Always use context clue in the passage to find meaning. Let's look at another vocabulary question. The question asks, what does persist means? In the passage, the sentence is, the problem still persists. From the context, we can understand that it means the problem continues or goes on. It hasn't gone away. So the correct answer is continue. The key here is to always look at how the word is used in the passage. You don't need to know every meaning of the word, just what it means in the context. This is what JAMB wants in vocabulary question. Understanding word from context, not just dictionary meaning or definitions. Finally, let's look at main idea question. Main idea question asks you about general message or overall point of the passage. They are not about one word, one sentence, or a single detail. They are about the passage as a whole. For example, the question asks, what is the main idea of the passage? When we look at the passage, we see it talks about examination malpractice and its effects. Notice that we didn't focus on just one sentence. We looked at the whole passage to understand what the author wants to tell us. So for main questions, always ask yourself, what is this passage really about overall? This is how you find the correct answer. Let's quickly recap what we have learned today. We learned the meaning of comprehension and different types of comprehension questions in JAMB, such as factual questions, inference questions, vocabulary questions, and main idea questions. We also learned how to use skimming and scanning techniques to read passage quickly and find answers effectively. Remember, the key to doing well in comprehension is regular practice and careful reading of the passage. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more English tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I encourage you to practice more comprehension questions. See you in the next lesson.